Hello and welcome to Hops and Brews. This week, we're all in isolation. We need stuff to do.
For an open window on a crappy world, Max and Chris from Ups and Brews. Ups and Brews. Welcome to Ups and Brews.
All right, so this week, as you probably know, if you're living in this current time, even though I know that a lot of you are probably watching from the future, probably less so from the past. But COVID is here. It is forcing everyone indoors. Self-isolation is key. Right now we're in Canada, but I've heard a lot of things around the world. States, a lot of other countries are practicing this, which I think is very important. We do want to help limit the growth of this COVID-19, of this coronavirus. And self-isolation is kind of key. It's had an impact on the industry, but one brewery stands out when it comes to all of this, and that's Sierra Nevada. Sierra Nevada recently posted a recipe to their infamous Pale Ale, which I think is really awesome. It's great for the community. It's great for the homebrewing community who wanted to take a crack at that beer and try to replicate it or try to brew it. It's also great for people who are bored or want to get into a new hobby. That's a great place to start. Start with something you know. Start with something that is phenomenal. That beer is one of my favorite beers. That Pale Ale has redefined what I think a Pale Ale should be, and it has for the industry for a very long time. So yeah, I think it's awesome that they've done this. I hope to see more breweries do it, and that's the big thing is, even though you're posting a recipe, you're not giving away your secret. Beer's 4 ingredients. It takes a lot more than just those 4 ingredients to create a phenomenal beer. It takes years of practice and honing down and QC and just putting time into your product. There's a lot of different things I'll hit later about why there shouldn't be a lot of fear when you're putting out a recipe. It's not, people are not going to copy it, and if they do, they're not going to do it as good as you. As long as you keep innovating and trying to brew that beer perfectly as a brewery, giving it out as a homebrew recipe, I think it's really cool. I think it's really nice, and still use to this day, one of my favorite hops out there, Cascade. Cascade is a phenomenal hop, even though that a lot of different, I guess, better hops were created from it and have a little more flavor, a little more flair. I think Cascade is still great. I think Cascade is still something to use in your beers, and Sierra Nevada, every time they produce a beer like that, really proves it. So I'm looking forward to seeing if people actually try it. Now, Chris, I feel like this is really awesome. What's your opinion on this? And what's going on? Who is Sierra Nevada, and why is this so awesome?
So yes, Max, I do think it's awesome that breweries are sharing their own recipes to kind of like help people staying at home, staying sane, but also experiment with their own brew kit that may be dusting off back there in their kitchen or in their garage. I know for myself that I'm currently stuck with the Ups and Bros brewing kit in my garage, and unfortunately, I don't have the time or the space or whatever, the knowledge or just max backing to jump into this recipe. But I do think that sharing the secret behind the recipe, but also showcasing the ingredients used in there, is a fantastic way to create a connection with your consumers, but also homebrewing community that's been thriving, but also that always helps supporting the smaller brewing industry since the beginning of the history. Speaking of beginning of the history, Sierra Nevada. If you've never heard about them, then you might be from somewhere else, maybe another planet, maybe just another region, or just you've never been to the US or drank beers in the US. Sierra Nevada is a brewery that started in 1979 with Ken Grossman. With a little homebrewing kit, he started doing more and more beers, but also creating a staple which is called the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Sierra Nevada was a key part of the 90s boom of brewery in the US. The 90s were a big revolution in the US with breweries like Dogfish, Anchor Steam, supporting the whole industry. Samuel Adams was also a big part of that. So all those breweries working together. I'm also forgetting Brooklyn Brewery, sorry, but all of them really took over the States with very powerful beers, but very interesting flagships. And Sierra Nevada with their pale ale had a very grapefruit forward with a nice malty backbone beer to showcase to people. Also served in smaller bottles, which I always enjoy, the kind of like green kick on the label, but also the small bottles make it very classic as a little beer. With the rise in popularity of very up forward beers, strong IPAs and all that, like we can basically talk about the IBUR that we've seen in the US, but also here in Canada. Sierra Nevada really stapled or really made a name of themselves with the trademark Hop Rocket. No, it's not the Hop Rocket, it's the Up Torpedo. So they have an IPA called the Extra Torpedo, and it's made with this specific equipment. Now a lot of breweries are using this kind of like hop back, hop torpedo system. I think that their own system is trademarked, so you can't use it, but everyone kind of like got the same thing going on, but it helped them pushing forward bigger production of very hop forward beers without losing yield in the end process, which is key in the brewing industry. You want good yield to make good profit to make it to the end of the year. So this pale ale is 100% Cascade pale ale, and I may be preaching for my own ear, but I'm growing Cascade here. I've always been a fan of Cascade. I think that it's the hop that put basically IPAs on the map. And it's always been kind of like, not underwhelmed, but just misunderstood in the past years with all the Citras, Mosaic, Amarillo present on the market. Not a lot of people are experimenting with Cascade, which I think it's sad because they do good beers. I remember really powerful IPAs with a lot of Cascade. They were really grapefruit forward and a lot of different things going on. It's kind of like a play on the West Coast IPA a little bit. And maybe I'm missing that. Maybe I'm just a little bit too old school for that. But I think that Cascade should probably do a comeback. And if you come around, I have them in the backyard, and smelling them straight from the cone itself just makes it so perfect every single time. So if you happen to be in the States and you want to try these specific beers, the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is a staple classic American beer. But also, if you happen to be, I think sometimes it's available in LCBOs, but it's changing through the seasons. So keep an eye on it if you want to sample it. It's a staple. Definitely something you should try if you haven't already. But let's say you don't want to find it, to bottle it, or whatever, to drink it. You want to brew it. Max, how do we do that? Like they have the recipe out there, but Max, please help us to develop or brew this fantastic little beer.
Thanks, Chris. Now let's take a deeper look at this recipe. Beer is 4 ingredients, as I mentioned earlier. The secret one, the fifth one is love. And timing on everything. I'm going to be taking a look at 3 of the main ingredients of this beer. The one I'm going to kind of forget about for now, but I'm still going to mention, so I guess I'm still mentioning it. It's just not really relevant to brewing this beer at this particular time, is the water profile. A lot of breweries kind of choose their location by water. If you have a water profile, a very specific water profile with very specific ions, very specific calcium to it, a specific acidity, hardness, pH level, all that stuff is super important. It's one of the biggest ingredients in beer. And that's the thing I hinted at earlier, is it's very hard to replicate a water source. And as a brewery, if you have a perfect water source, you're adding your sugars to it, you're adding your acidity to it. Those are part of the secrets that make it very hard for someone else to replicate that recipe. You might have the grain, you might have the hops, you might have all that stuff, but it's very hard to replicate water. Get it? Hardness in water, hard water. So let's take a look at the second ingredient on the list. Second biggest one, grain. Very simple grain profile for this beer. Two-row and caramel. The two-row is there in a bigger percentage. You're looking at your sugar content for that. You're looking at all of the enzymes for the beer, for the wort, for the sugar creation. Your two-row is the biggest one. And then the second one, caramel, mostly there for color. We are talking about an American pale ale. American style has always been a little more on the copper side. A little more old school, if you ask me. Pale ales nowadays generally are a little more pale, but in this case, the caramel is really there for the color, a bit of the sweetness, a bit of the flavors, and it's great. I definitely works with this particular beer. I wouldn't change it because you're doing a clone of a brewery, so you might as well use everything they give you as tools. The third biggest ingredients, the hop. There's a lot of hops in this beer. It is very much a hop-forward beer. Uses, as I've mentioned earlier, one of my favorite hops ever, the Cascade. Cascade, phenomenal hop, great for flavor, great for bitterness, great all around. It is a workhorse of a hop, and they use it very, very well. The boil for this beer is 90 minutes, and there's an addition of hops pretty much every 30 minutes, and then steeping in the end. So the longer the hop boils, the more bitterness you extract from it. And the reason for the 90-minute boil is a bit of that DMS as well. So you're flashing off a lot of DMS that is found in grain the longer you boil it. It also helps concentrate the sugars for your end product, and the hops benefit from a longer boil period if you do want more bitterness. It's a little old school to be adding every half hour. The new kind of thought process when it comes to hop is more, if you're going to be using it for bitterness, you're adding it even as you're transferring your wort from the mash to the boil. You really want to extract as much bitterness from them as possible, and you don't really care about the flavor at that point. The flavor you're adding in the whirlpool. It's kind of the new age way of thinking about all this stuff, and it works fairly well. Well, it works really, really well. A little more old school to be adding it every half hour, but it does work, and it is there for a reason. When a brewery like Sierra Nevada gives you a recipe and tells you to add it every half hour, I'm pretty sure they've tried everything else, and this was their favorite way of brewing it. So every half hour Cascade, and you're adding some in the whirlpool for that nice Cascade flavor. Nice grapefruit. I love Cascade so much. Last ingredient, drum roll please, Cali Ale. It's a notorious and infamous, and this beer, Sierra Nevada, screams Cali Ale when it comes to its yeast. You're using that yeast to brew this beer. It's famous for American-style pale ales, American-style IPAs, and when, that's the thing, this beer is so infamous. It's so in the just in beer in general, when you're thinking of two big things that revolutionized the brewing world, you're thinking Cascade really changed the way that American brewers were looking at hops. It wasn't just for bitterness, it was a lot for flavor, and you could get some juicy flavors. I mean, you could get some grapefruit flavors from it, which is phenomenal. And the Cali Ale really changed the way that brewers looked at yeast and how to properly maintain that yeast, and it just created beautiful beer. And this Sierra Nevada is the reason why all of these things mesh together, really revolutionized the world of brewing. If you like the video, actually, before we do that, self-isolation, it's been really hard. I'm slowly going crazy here. I discovered that I don't have a lot of hobbies. So when I saw this from Sierra Nevada, I thought it was awesome. A lot of people are stuck indoors. There's not much to do. Might as well brew. Might as well get into a hobby. If it's not brewing, if it's something else, just do it. Start the hobbies that you've always put on the side, and start them now. You've got some time. We're all going to get through this together, and stay home, stay isolated. Let's try to get rid of this thing as fast as possible, stop the spread. And if you like the video, and if you like beer in general, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We've got a bunch of beer content already there, and every week we have new stuff coming out. And in the comments below, please let us know if you've tried this recipe, if you think it's awesome that this brewery is posting its recipe, and what's your opinion on this? Do you think more breweries should be posting their recipes? Do you think it shouldn't happen? Do you think it's a mistake? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you like it? Do you not? We'll see you guys in the next episode.